I want to actually do our panel. I'm going to bring people up one at a time, and we'll have a little conversation. And I think we can take questions from the audience. We'll just have you shout them out. So I want this to be a little bit interactive. I'm going to start with Ben. Ben Haines, IT strategy at Pabst Brewing Company. He's got 15 years of experience leading teams in Asia-Pac, Europe, and North America, so he's a very global guy. He's led mobile dev teams covering Windows Mobile and BlackBerry and iPhone and iPad, so he's a very multi-platform guy. And he's got tremendous experience with a key application and a key enablement in iPad and iPhone using Box for Red Bull. And he's now at Pabst, and I love Pabst because I love beer. And I'm so glad to see that they're actually coming back. So I want to invite Ben to join us, and hopefully he's here. He is. Please join me in welcoming Ben. Hi, Ben. Thanks.
Hi. Thanks.
Great. Have a seat. We'll get started. Oh, look, somebody left me a tablet. That's nice.
CBR's for everybody.
Yeah.
Turn your card over if it has.
Yeah, we're not Motorola. Sorry about that.
How are you doing?
Very well.
Good,
very
good.
well.
And you're speaking a little later this afternoon, too, in a breakout session? Is that right?
Go a bit deeper into the application we built using the Box API and how we got to it, basically.
Well, so without going too deep and stealing the thunder from that session, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and the project that you're talking about, and we'll just kind of get started that way.
Yeah. I started a fair while ago down in Asia Pacific in Australia, and moved through the whole infrastructure stack and moved pretty quickly to applications and mobility, and building, like I said, applications for Windows. That's where we started. It was pretty horrible back then, with Lotus, actually. And then we moved to BlackBerry. We had a Palm solution in the middle, which didn't work too well. And then...
and this is at which company?
This was at Red Bull.
At Red Bull.
Yeah, this was at Red Bull. And that was serving Asia Pacific and the North America regions. And then iPads came very quickly, and we saw an opportunity there to really streamline our workforce, especially our sales team.
Yeah, so what's the use case? Talk a little bit about that.
So it's really about giving them focus and getting in front of the customers. So a lot of sales guys can get lost in the numbers, and they're spending all their time, sitting in the home office and, diving deep trying to find the answers, and they're not in front of the customers. So our CEO was really about they need to be in front of the customers, need to access the information quickly, and be selling the product, not creating fancy presentations and going through the numbers and not really having the conversation.
So how do you get that stuff out to the sales organization? Is that the basic problem?
That was the biggest issue we were looking at, and Red Bull is a brand with amazing media activity. Basically, we've got the videos and lots and lots of information. So how do we get that critical information out to everyone? And 150 meg, video file doesn't really work over 3G too well. You're
not going to email it and have them download it over 3G?
No, it wasn't working too well. So we'd bring up an event and they'd want to publicize it in the regions, and there's no way to do it, basically.
So what'd you do?
We actually started with the Box native app for iPad, and it was really good, but we had an issue with the end users getting it. They weren't prepared enough. So they would, they'd rock up to a client and they'd say, yeah, I'll show you this video, and hold on, I've got to download it over 3G. So they had to think. So we pretty quickly moved to the API and made it simple for the end users. You don't have to think. Log on to the application. It will update if you're on Wi-Fi. When you walk in, it's there. And so you have the latest information, and we built a menu structure so they could.
So you actually built an app and deployed it on the iPad.
Yeah.
And it ties back into the.
Yeah.
Tell us that story.
Into Box. So we set up, every user in Box. We have one central admin who uploads the files in different folders, and pushed it out to every user. Gave them an account, and it was kind of.
How many users?
Simple. It was about 120 at that point.
Yeah.
They simply. Load the app. We use a provisioning software. Load the app. They log into Box. Log into the app. You log into Box once, and it starts sucking down what they need.
And it only does it over Wi-Fi?
Yeah, we experimented. You can choose. Yeah.
So you can pay that 3G bill if you want?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's always a big discussion.
How many sync events do you have? Do you know?
No, I didn't. I haven't looked.
Yeah, good. So solve a real problem. How do you get these large files out onto iPads so salespeople can be productive in the field?
Yep.
That's the basic use case. Did you look at any other suppliers before you settled on Box?
Yes.
You want to say a little bit about that?
Let's just say it wasn't good. We, as a broader collaboration and strategy, we're looking at, file collaboration and tying into different vendors. And we looked at one of their competitors and actually ran a pilot. And that was stopped relatively quickly. They just didn't have the security we needed. They're very consumer focused. And so we canned that very quickly and moved to Box.
So how long did it take you to get the project built, the app built, and up and running?
The initial build was up in, it was actually up in 2 days, the actual integration with the Box API.
2 days?
Yeah.
2 days?
2 days.
Just two?
Just two.
Who did it? You hire an army of developers probably?
No, we had, we hired an agency because we wanted a company that focused on the brand and the image. That's the other advantage of building your own app. You can brand it and make it look and feel how you need. So we used a company called Noose, Noose Guide, and they had it up in 2 days. It took us another month to work out the branding and work through marketing and
some of those business issues.
Yeah,
But the technology side,
it was up and running.
2 days.
Yeah.
Wow, great, good. That's good to get us started. I'm going to invite Ben Doyle to join us if I can find the clicker here. Here we go. So Ben Doyle is the director of IT at Enterasys Networks. Completely different kind of company, different kind of market, and I think a very interesting project. Also, I think a lot of a lot of innovation coming from this company in the way in which they kind of approach IT. A lot of sophistication. So Ben, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great, nice to see you.
Put him in the hot seat.
Oh, sure, that's fine. Good, we're doing the Johnny Carson thing where we're moving down one chair at a time, I guess. So Ben is the director of IT apps for Enterasys Networks. He has 15 years of experience in sales ops and IT. And he credits his early career in sales as having a big benefit to his IT. How many of you are in IT? Yeah, okay, how many of you also worked in the business? Yeah, I think it's probably a good thing, right? It gets you started with what the real issues are. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about that experience, a little bit about Enterasys Networks, and kind of get us going before we start talking about the project.
So I did start in sales. I started my career on the phone, making lots of phone calls every day. And I think I really learned a lot about what it was like to work in the business and to use technology in a meaningful way.
Handle rejection, all kinds of...
Lots of good, yeah, absolutely. So then I moved into IT based on a lot of my experience with CRM. And I've been in IT for the past decade. I'm now currently responsible for our ERP, CRM, web, enterprise data. And I think maybe the thing I'm most proud about is in my 5 years at Enterasys, we've deployed about 19 cloud applications.
19, so it's all cloud all the time?
Not all, so we're a typical mid-market business. We have Microsoft SharePoint 2007, actually 2 instances. We have SAP, so we have a lot of the legacy on-prem software that we've been talking about.
A lot of interstate highway systems, systems of record.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what's your key cloud apps? Name a couple of them.
We use Okta for our cloud-based access and identity, and I'm a huge Okta fan. We also use Good Data, Coupa, Marketo, and we've been on Salesforce.com since 2003.
So you got a lot of experience with the cloud generally. All right, so tell us about the project and how Box kind of came into the story.
Sure. Our use case was very specific for Box. We have a function at Enterasys called Sales Enablement, and the goal of Sales Enablement is to provide the right content at the right time on any device, online or offline, but we really couldn't, we tried to solve that problem for years using SharePoint. And I think we just got to a point where we realized it was never going to happen, and our account executives and sales engineers were starting to use their own solutions. They were taking matters into their own hands.
Consumerization wields its ugly head.
Absolutely.
What were they using?
People were using Dropbox. There's a Microsoft solution, ShareFile, I think. Just a variety of different things. And we wanted to get in front of it.
So tell us about the project then and how it came about.
Sure. So this sales enablement, there's really kind of 2 sales enablement use cases. One was to centrally manage content and push it to our sales organization in essentially a folder structure. So we have folders for competitive information, product information, solution information, and it's all centrally managed by our Director of Global Sales Enablement. Then we also have a field community setup where the field is really collaborating on content in Box. So those are the two different use cases.
So it sounds like a similar kind of model on the sales side as to what you're wrestling with at Red Bull and I'm sure at Pabst as well. So this is a lot of energy coming from sales, and is that where the consumerization is most powerful in your experience too, Ben?
Yeah, sales and marketing.
Sales and marketing
more
both.
so marketing, but
Yeah, same. And so there's a real B2B or customer focus angle to this. It's really putting pressure on you to provision a system that actually works. So Box outside the firewall, basically. Is that kind of it? Ben Doyle, how much of this content actually flows out to customers then?
So, I mean, we're relatively new Box customers. We've been on Box for about 3 months. So I think we're just starting to explore the opportunity collaborating with both customers and partners. So that's, I think that's the next horizon for us.
Okay, to figure out that. And we'll drill in that a little bit with your questions as well. Thank you. I'd like to also welcome Sean Andersen to the stage. Sean is Director of Interactive Services for Six Flags Entertainment, a longtime Box fan. Sean brings emerging media to entertainment reality. Gotta love that.
All right.
Welcome, Sean. So he's also a guy dealing with B2B, and we're kind of getting a recurring theme here going. But Sean, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure.
A little bit about Six Flags Entertainment for those of us that may not have experienced the thrill, and then we can talk about the project a little bit.
All right. Well, Six Flags is a regional theme park. We're located. We have 19 locations across the U.S. and Mexico and
Anybody
Canada.
at Six Flags?
Any user? Anybody?
Oh,
guess?
come on, really?
That's
we'll
okay.
go.
Well, when I started, I hadn't been to a Six Flags myself.
You hadn't?
No, and that was about 5 years ago. So,
wow.
so I really come from the IT side and the interactive and ad agency space. So I was very familiar with the web movement back in early the late 90s,
Yeah.
and then of course with the .com bubble, and then further on. So I've always been looking at what's coming up next, and when I came to Six Flags, my mission was push the commerce forward, push the website forward, and then look inward and do the same thing. So I'm working on really cool projects from near-field communications, like getting the pass into a digital format, into a mobile format, swiping it, moving forward on that type of side. Intermediate, we're actually doing biometrics, so we're going to be switching to biometric stuff, getting gate access and getting rid of ID cards and kind of like consolidating those
I thought
processes.
you meant so when someone was on a roller coaster and they were going to have a
Yeah,
heart attack, you would know, and
No,
not that.
no.
Okay.
But we do have, I also do in the queue lines, there are a number of TV systems where we provide entertainment, we create our own content, but really it's a sponsorship network where we take our sponsors and throw that content out there.
So that starts to set up the reason you needed Box.
Exactly. And so we were not only producing our own content, but we were working with ad agencies and other creative shops, bringing in large assets, 400, 500 meg files, needing to be reviewed, needed to be approved, and then, of course, pushed out to our content management system.
So you couldn't do that on SharePoint?
No.
Another recurring theme.
And actually, that was a big thing. We had a SharePoint 2007 implementation, which we actually had to table because the file formats and the sizing just could not match that. And so that's where we came to Box.
So in your Box instance, you've got internal users. I think you've said around, 3,000 people could access it?
So on the Box implementation, we started at 50. We're just at over 300 right now. This is all grassroots. We promote it as the standard, but we do not force people into it. And our next wave, and I'll be talking about this later, but our next wave will be to move into setting that as a standard going forward.
That's right. So you're doing a session later as well.
Yes,
okay,
exactly.
Great. How many B2B partners have access to that Box system that you manage?
It's just about over 200.
So almost as many as you have internal users.
And that's where the mobile part comes in, because while we're a very heavy-centric BlackBerry shop, there are some iPhone and iPad deployments. Those are primarily on the consumer side. They'll log into Box, do a quick review on the graphics side. But really, what the mobile side is helpful is for our partners. Those are ad agencies, media companies that have mobile technology that need to get back to us quickly.
They'll probably be happy to get that Apple thing, huh?
Yes.
So how do you pay for those B2B partners to come in and use your Box content?
Well, we get them to obviously sign up, and it becomes a internal process. It's free to all of our internal users. But from a managed perspective, we bring everybody in externally. So if you're at Ogilvy or if you're at Turnstile, these are some of our ad agencies. You have an email account that we just connect you into that folder that we share that information with.
Yeah. Okay. So, but I'm interested in the cost. You actually write a check for every one of those people that comes in and uses it?
No. So those folks are either at the intro level, or then we bring them up if we want to have them managed. So okay. we do pay for the ones that are managed. We don't pay for the ones who are just at the bare sharing level. Got it.
Got it. Okay. Good. So there's some themes I'm starting to sense here across the board. Really, there's large files involved. There's often mobility involved. There's often sharing or collaborating both internally as well as with. In some cases, third parties involved. These are situations where I would expect the cloud to be extremely important, whereas an internal system would be very hard to extend out. So I am interested in a little bit in how the projects got done. We mentioned 2 days of development time to build an application on the APIs. Talk a little bit about what your internal resources are to manage the Box environment. And Ben Doyle, let me start with you.
Sure. So it's a really kind of an interesting story. So we deployed Box, myself and our director of sales enablement. It was very quick, nearly work of an instant. We loaded users, 300 users into Box, loaded 300 users into Okta, and because our user base was already familiar logging into the Okta My Applications page, we just provisioned Box in Okta using SAML 2.0 single sign-on, and it was literally a couple hours. And we deployed Box that way. So super simple. I probably spend 10% of my time on Box on a weekly basis. And
for administration?
For administration, it's a very, and I do it myself, which, whereas I don't administer SharePoint myself. So it's
and then you said in your organization, it's the sales teams and the sales sort of ops teams that are actually managing the information itself. So talk about sort of how, the self-serve model for them.
So really the key features, the key problem that we were solving is a lot of our field salespeople are in remote regions, or they'll set foot inside of a building and they'll lose connectivity. So we wanted to provide them with all of our sales content in a way that they could store it locally on their mobile device, or using desktop sync, keep it on their laptop. And the desktop sync functionality in particular was extremely important to us.
But you're not using an app, right? You're just using the native Box feature set?
That's correct, native Box feature set.
And Ben Haines, you're doing something different, right? You're building an app. So tell me how your end user who actually manage the content, how they're interacting with the Box system.
So we had just one person basically in sales administration that set up the folders, and it literally took 5 minutes. Create a few folders.
They don't need to go to a half-hour session and learn how to set up folders?
No, I honestly didn't spend any time with it. Set up the folders and drag and drop, and away you go. We didn't do the Box sync at the start. We wanted to just keep it lightweight.
Yeah.
Drag and drop, and they were up and running.
Yeah. Now, would you say Box has started to take on some of the features that you added on into the core product, so you can make some of the sort of dedicated features you had to build go away, or not?
I haven't seen it yet. I haven't looked at their native app yet. They still have the same, tap, save it down, and our executives like that.
Yeah.
They're a little bit more, forward thinking. The sales guys are, heat at the moment, so if it worked pretty well.
Yeah, okay, good. So I'm interested also in this kind of viral effect, right? So it starts in a small group and it sort of catches on. So I'd be interested if somebody would kind of jump in and tell us an experience with sort of the viral adoption of Box within a group, and then how other groups might have seen where the benefits from Box were and jumped on with it. Who'd like to start on that? Everybody would, okay, great.
So I think we started with a very specific use case, but what's interesting is the other ways that our sales team has started to use Box. So we started to see a number of reps, and I do this myself as well. I just have started to keep all of my files on my desktop in Box. So I actually changed a setting in my browser, which is kind of cool. So when I save a file, it saves into my Box sync folder, and it all goes there. And our sales reps are starting to do that, so they have access to to all of their files on all of their devices.
Because they all have 4 devices, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so it's easy, and they tell each other, and it catches on that way. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I think it is that viral. You know, sales reps come up with an interesting use case. They talk to other folks, and we start to see this expansion of how they're sharing content in Box.
Yeah. Other viral stories?
Yeah, well, we had I guess one of the issues with Box is that it catches on quickly. We started a pilot with 50 people thinking, and this was more on the collaboration side of things, you know, let's see how this works. We got to 250 in about 3 months. And that was a mix of internal and external and collaborating externally as well. So it caught on very, very quickly. And we removed I removed 3 different collaboration systems, file storage collaboration systems over that period of time. So it was kind of nice.
Good. And Sean, you have some situations too where viral took over.
Absolutely, and I'll talk about them a little bit later. But the biggest thing is that once you start adding people into your projects, they get automatically part of that, you know, the part of the process, and so then they tell their friends. So by just adding somebody's email address inside of a working group, that becomes that spread. It's very easy, and it's something that. You know, it took our CIO a couple of seconds, and he was able to get right on as well.
Good. So ease of use plays a big role there.
Excellent.
Can we take a question from the audience? Anybody had a burning platform question for our panelists? Raise it high if you got one, so sort of shout it out. Don't be shy. Yes, please.
Are you guys replacing on-premise file storage with Box?
Are you replacing on-premise file storage with Box?
Yes. And that was actually one of the discussions and a bit of a barrier to adoption, because our infrastructure guys have a 3-year investment in all their SAN storage, and you know, it's all planned out. And we come in with and I came from the application side and enterprise architecture side. I came in and said, you know, use it for something else. You know, I don't care anymore. But now we have an operational cost that we have to absorb. So, but yeah, we did look at replacing a lot of on-premise.
Have you done the math on that? Is it going to be more expensive over time to store it in the cloud? That's your question, right? Yeah. You haven't done the math.
No, we did. And if you make it a pure infrastructure play, as in just looking at SAN storage, it won't work out. It'll look more expensive. And this was one of the mistakes we had to talk through with our group, is it's not about removing file storage. You've got to look at your infrastructure costs. You've got to look at your software costs. Yeah. You know, so your SharePoint, and we had Lotus connections, and all those different things, your development costs. So you can't just look at that file storage, because it won't work out for you.
So we've done this for email. You have to do the all-in cost analysis. Somebody had a chart up on it earlier in the day, I think, about it. But you got it all up, and it's hard to do that math generally. So when you do have to go out to build that business case, think through the file distribution benefits, the sort of end-user platform target benefits, and then at least, you know, mention that there's a whole stack of costs that lie behind. It's not just storage, right?
And I guess the biggest thing, just add to that, is what price do you put on agility? So, you know, you can't. It's a tough one.
Yeah, no, it's a hard one. Yeah. That's a great question. Another question from our audience, and then I got one too. Yeah, in the back there.
What about records management? Do you worry about how records are kept and how they're maintained?
So what about records management? Do you worry about how records are kept and maintained?
Sorry, we were a private company, so we didn't have as big an issue, but it actually added a value there because you have the version controlling. So for us, it was a benefit because you could go back and see all the versions. In a traditional file system, good luck, I guess.
But for a more traditional archiving compliance, it sounds like a third party working through the APIs, like the Live Office thing we heard about, would be a way to go. Yeah. Okay, I think we have time for maybe one or two more audience questions. Yes, please. Oh, sorry, next over here.
How do you keep your users from manipulating your file structure, deleting files, getting it crazy?
Everybody hear that? How do you keep your users from messing up your file system and getting it crazy?
Yeah.
So that's an interesting one. So we, as part of our sales enablement use case, you know, we wanted everyone to be able to take the files onto their desktops. So we made everyone an editor to the folder. And, you know, generally speaking, we've just kept an eye on it and kind of managed it that way. For very important documents, you can lock individual files, which is the kind of the other way to solve that problem. So people can download a file, but they can't upload or change a file. So that's how we solve that. Though I suspect that functionality is going to be coming soon.
Sean, anything to add to that?
No, it's a good point because it's one of those, as you start to add, it gets confusing. And people will start to accidentally move things around, rename things, and so. So the versioning does help. That's a huge benefit to be able to just roll back. But of course, you're working with these groups, and we don't let these groups grow for like everybody in the company on a folder. So it's team-based, and so by focusing it on the projects and by focusing it on the tasks that we're working on, that really solves the problem.
Just to add to that, one other thing that we've seen a few times is that the content that we think is kind of the official content actually isn't. So people will replace the content with a more updated version, and that's actually one of the benefits of the collaboration.
Sort of the Wikipedia
Yes.
model here. So one question over here quickly, and then I have one, and then we'll go. Was that where it was? Okay, yes, please.
How do you handle metadata of content?
How do you handle content metadata? Punt. I think we're getting a punt on that one.
So we've tagged documents in Box using tags, and I think that we rely on search. So just kind of the folder structure, tags, and then using the robust search within Box. But maybe not a direct answer.
So that's a great question, and my last question for you is, what feature do you need Box to add? And I will add that one, because Box is looking an awful lot like a content management system today, but fill in the blank, right? Certainly metadata, search, those kinds of things are critical to really creating business intelligence or enterprise, make your enterprise smarter, as I think we heard Aaron say. So I'm sure a lot of features I would want to see for that, but let me just go down the line here. Sean, what feature would you like Box to add?
So search is probably the biggest one, but rolling that up in terms of enterprises. We're kind of turning our SharePoint into more of the entrance to our search and to our BI. Less so about the document management and more so about the go-to for all the components that you need to search on.
So put it so you can find the stuff.
Exactly. So what we'd love to see is federated search all the way out.
Yeah, got it.
That's
got it. Good.
I think it's the view-only syncing capability that I mentioned.
So controls over access and who gets to do what?
Yeah.
Ben?
Selected folder sync.
Selected folder sync.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds like a refinement to a sync feature, which is great.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sean, Ben, and Ben. Appreciate you coming up.